So this is Michael and Alan. You guys are probably not gonna watch this. You guys are probably whatever. I mean, understandably so in a sense, but I mean, it does come from somewhere. There's a bit of a basis, and it goes back to a couple of years ago. And I mean, you guys both know the stuff with mom, and you guys both know going back to earlier in the pandemic, this time that we're still in, as far as just the stuff that was actually a pattern prior to that was kind of recurring and emerging again that I think in some ways it conveyed with y'all and y'all talked there about. And I know we've had conversations, little things here and there. It's like, oh, can we really make this work and stuff? And I don't entirely have the answer to that. And I think that where I'm going with this is that, I mean, I think mental health in the API community, we're all first gen. It's not really off talked about, to say the least. And ultimately, like, gosh, it just makes me frustrated. Um, and we've all been in therapy. We all share the same two parents, and I've had deep psychological things that are not out of the norm. And it's actually healthy that we've addressed. But ultimately, and all that to say is that when you go back to what actually happened in 2016 with me, I don't think either you guys or a lot of people knew what actually was going on or was happening. And the brunt of that trauma in tandem with the multifactorial situation at home and what I'd been really struggling and dealing with and trying to be there with mom and for mom ultimately. And I mean, it was kind of happening then too. Like there was moments where there's this guy who's in Sigma Chi with me at UC Irvine named Mackley or Mackie Bowers, and there's a moment when we were living in the place in Marbella, the condo, where it was like, I came back one night, that fourth graduating year of college, and effectively like I feel like mom was getting afraid that I was gonna graduate and maybe like move away from her or something like that, and she'd noticed like a receipt from Brodard, and ultimately she asked me, oh, who did you, it's like mom's tendencies, and ultimately I remember it was like the day before maybe Valentine's Day 2016 is like she came back from Costco. She was driving herself back then, I believe, and she'd gone back, and so I was just at home. And, like, I got home and like I was about to, and I forget the extent to which with this specific story we've talked about it, but ultimately like what transpired was she came home and I was about to leave to go somewhere, and then she was telling me how she had some interactions with Costco. She had some friends there, still does, the Costco intestine, and like said something about like she has a Costco daughter, named Brenda, the person who worked there named Brenda then, and started talking about different things, and I was about to leave, and then all of a sudden she kind of locks the door, um, and she kind of like as I'm about to leave, she kind of pushes me down, and I'm just kind of freaked out by this, and I remember I started crying. I was like fourth year at UCI, so it was like 22 at that point. It was years back, and like ultimately, I remember I called, a friend, a guy who was in my fraternity, who was actually younger than me. His name's named Mackie Bowers, and he said something about communication, communication in the family, and that's not typically been a thing that's been constant. And granted, I'm not saying that it's justified within the recent sort of asynchronous line of things, but it does come from somewhere. And there is maybe this pent up frustration that stems from me feeling like the past couple of years, and since that happened, and me sort of realizing and remembering things, and reconnecting with people and actually getting some real therapy from it, is that, yeah, gosh, I'm changing a bit, but ultimately, just sort of really remember is like, oh yeah, the last 5 years, 6 years, I've not gotten to celebrate. Like I lost touch with almost like all my friends. Like a lot of people didn't really know what happened. They just saw an outpouring of things back then that were really a product of not having much of any actual support back then, and just not being able to celebrate like my birthday, like really the past 5 years, or really being in touch with friends that much, and getting back onto that is something that I think is the case more recently. But I feel like there's just elements of certain things now, especially with like what Asuk and her sort of want to get going, that have just been really culminating, as like frustrating, infuriating, and so forth. With in some ways because of just thinking more about it, and the fact that like we're effectively, me and Michael at least, are being asked to sort of mortgage our futures for this place. That's, I mean, really, I think it's for mom. Um, and so I think there's an element. Yeah, he saves some money. It's actually, when you think about it, it's not. I mean, we would be mortgaging for most of that place, and like it is something, but still, nevertheless, and it's like in consideration of our each of our own lives, and me and Michael's, as far as just like if we we're fortunate to have our own families one day and so forth. Like that's kind of like a huge thing. It's not small, and like the expectation I think is that I'd be there, and Michael's kind of doing his own thing still, and with different things for work, and that's also, so yeah, that feels into some stress, and I feel like I just wanted to do something like this to, gosh, if it's even being watched right now, I'd be impressed, and I think the recent scheme of things, like justifiably or not, is just such a way as to you know incite or elicit some disdain, to say the least. And I just hope that it's at least, I'm not saying it's justified, but it is sort of have a basis, and precedence in this stretch of years in which I feel like just a lot's happened and not happened in some ways, and also granted, my most recent employer, and that's a whole thing which I'm planning to speak more to at some point. But ultimately, yeah, I mean, I think I kind of shared that anecdote to say that, look, we're brothers in name, biological brothers. Technically, you guys are my two older brothers, but um, in the end is that at the same time, it's I don't know. I feel like some stuff with mom, it's like it's not what has been uh, purported really, and how it's been represented. And I feel like you two should know that more than most people. It has been something to shroud, as far as, oh, Daniel's like, the younger one, and like doing this stuff, and I've spelled this out with her. We've been more vocal about it recently, insofar as just like, yeah, it's, I mean, because it's a complete role reversal. It's a parentification. It's being there as an emotional support and so forth. And it's not like I'm not this little kid needing his mom to take care of him. And actually, it's been this hugely weighing thing insofar as my mental health and bandwidth, and just different things like that. And we're trying to get stuff going. And there is like this sort of like something within me that I think is largely informing, I think, um, this push and pull, and like uh, impatient, and just feeling like I really need to get X, Y, and Z going because of um, respectively taking out something like a mortgage and so forth, and just wanting to also live my own life and on my terms, and do different things that I feel like I want to do and that are important to me, that are in the vein of what I feel like I can do maybe, or at least worth trying for. So ultimately, yeah, it's really long. Gosh, yeah, I just wanted to do something because, um, yeah, and I know it doesn't make sense. Maybe it's not fully fair to y'all, to say the least, but does come from somewhere, and yeah, I'm gonna post this on YouTube for y'all.